All right. Good morning, guys. Give me a thumbs up in chat if you guys can hear me okay. And we'll go ahead and get started. It's going to be a lovely, not really lovely, but it's going to be a hot and humid day here. This is only the beginning of our hot weather that's upcoming. With the hot weather, though, our storm chances also increase. So give me a thumbs up. Awesome. Thanks, guys. So, SPC update for today. We do have a slight risk now in place for south central lower Michigan, anywhere from Mount Pleasant on down to the borders of Ohio as well as Indiana. North of there, a marginal level 1 out of 5 risk extends pretty much all the way up and over, excluding only the western 2 counties in the UP of Michigan. So the basic takeaway from this map is if you live in Michigan, minus the Ironwood area, you are in a severe risk today. The hazards today are going to be primarily, number one, damaging winds. My headphones are stuck here. Bear with me. Damaging winds are going to be your primary concern here. It's going to be for the exact same areas as that slight risk, anywhere south of Mount Pleasant to the borders of Indiana and Ohio. But north of there is a lower risk. It still extends further north, but again, excludes those 2 western counties in the western UP. But other than that, you are in a risk today if you are outside those 2 counties up in the UP. Highest risk, again, further south and south central in yellow. Secondary risk here, large hail. It's going to be highest further to the south and to the west towards Kalamazoo, Coldwater, Benton Harbor, those areas you see in yellow. But the brownish red color that extends further north and east is also a risk. It's just a little bit lower of a risk, but a risk is a risk, so take it seriously. And then lastly, I think the major update is the entire lower peninsula here is now within a 2% tornado contour. I know that there's a few white areas on here that would technically not be in a risk, like Monroe County up toward Ludington, Manistee. The map, though, what's important to notice with these maps is if you zoom way in here to this bottom right bar here, the key word here is within a 25-mile of a point. So the 25-mile radius does extend here in Monroe County as well as Ludington, Manistee. So just because you're not showing in the green color, that 25-mile point extends outward past that green where it ends, basically. So we're going to go ahead and call it the entire lower peninsula in a 2% low tornado risk today. It doesn't seem to concern us, too much, although we do have some models this morning trying to turn our low levels just a bit more than usual. So not surprised to see a 2% risk here. Overall tornado threat today is quite low. It's not zero, though. All right. Damaging winds should be the primary concern, large hail as a secondary concern, and then again, that tornado risk as well within the lower peninsula. Overall outlook here, we'll get updated again at 12:30 p.m. and again at 4 p.m. as well, but storms will be probably ongoing or about to start by 4 p.m. So one more update really at 12:30 to go off of if any adjustments need made. Let's go ahead and dive into some models here. So the latest model this morning, look at the 12Z here. Let's get a Midwest look. There we go. Now, we were looking at, if we zoom back, let's go ahead and start back to yesterday afternoon, what we looked at yesterday evening at 7 p.m. on our briefing. We had that morning showers and storms work through. Those didn't really happen too much, but we had those development there across like Lansing, Mount Pleasant, between those 2 areas. We saw this, what looks to be a line of storms that extends all the way over to Port Huron, and then it moves southeastward. That is still the expectation, although I will say the latest model here does look like it's lesser coverage right now. It does show southwest Michigan with the higher coverage, and then further to the east, like in the thumb, remains dry. But notice we have a secondary round here. This is at 9 p.m. at this point. We have a storm firing up in north central Michigan. We have a few showers in Detroit area, a few showers in Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo area. Those develop and they move east-southeastward within a good environment there. This one tracks across, we'll say, West Branch area, across the lake, and then into the Caseville, Port Austin area in the top of the thumb there. So takeaway from this is potential 2 rounds in some areas today. Not everybody's going to see 2 rounds. Further north, obviously, has the better chance for that second round. But we do think the coverage on this model is a little bit underdone. We do think it's still going to be a line. I think the NAM3 model is a good depiction of that. So here's a different model, what we kind of think is going to happen. Similar to what we talked about last night, we have this line right about 3 to 4 p.m. here. It's going to pop potentially in northern Michigan first, but the main concern is going to pop up right around the Lansing Grand Rapids area, roughly 3 to 4 p.m., and that's going to push east southeastward here. This is at 5 p.m. Here's 6 p.m. and then here's 7 p.m. So that's going to be your main time frame and main area of concern to watch as those storms get up and going roughly 3 to 4 p.m. Although any storm that does pop up in the afternoon, evening today, whether it's in a UP or northern lower or southern lower Michigan, will have that potential for severe weather as the environment is becoming favorable for it as we speak here. So overall takeaway, again, all hazards are possible in the state today. Main time frame still centered around that 3 p.m. to roughly 10 p.m. time frame. We do have a timing map up on our page. I actually have it loaded in here. This is approximate time frames. This was made last night, so minor adjustments may need to be made to this. But this is a pretty good general sense of what we're expecting today as far as timing goes. And again, highest risk, I believe, still is going to be in that slight risk in the yellow areas in southern lower Michigan, although not going to discount severe weather further north and even in the UP today as well. So takeaway, any storm that pops up today will have potential for severe damaging winds, your main concern, large hail, secondary concern, as well as an isolated tornado or two possible across the state. Now, I will say one more thing before I take some questions. If we look at our model that happened last night, we had our subscriber only live stream. We talked about this bow echo. Let's go ahead and go back to the HRRR model here. We talked about this bow echo that was shown on the models. Now, this morning's models don't really show that being the case. Let's go back to the 00Z. Here we go. If we can get a bow echo, though, if we get a big old line that kind of looks like a bow, we may be looking at a little bit more so of a higher wind risk, potentially upwards of 60, 70 miles per hour. Although latest models don't really show that bow happening now. I will say if it does end up being a bow echo, that would raise the wind threat up just a bit in terms of overall severity. So we're going to watch it closely. Latest models don't show it, but it's a possibility as we move into the afternoon, evening time frames. All right. I will hop over here into the comment section here. And again, timing map, again, I'm going to throw it up on your screen here for about 10 seconds, screenshot it. Take a mental note here. If you guys are going to ask what time for what time for this city, that city, please refer to the maps we made here. They're color coordinated. We do our best to try and communicate these risks, but I know a lot of you guys are going to want to know specifics about your areas. We do forecasts for this. We do maps specifically for those questions. So take a screenshot if you have to. Feel free. I'll post for you too. Just take a screenshot. Refer to it throughout the day. But this is your timing for today. So as far as risks go in certain areas, I don't think any one area has a higher risk in Michigan for like a tornado or stuff like that. I think it's equal across the board. Damaging wind, highest concern there is in slight risk, and then large hail further south and west toward Kalamazoo. But again, a risk is a risk, so take it seriously and make sure you have multiple ways to receive warnings, whether that's through a weather radio, a emergency app on your phone, the EAS alerts turned on your phone, stuff like that. Okay. What does the blue mean? What blue are we talking about here? Are we looking at the timing map here or what? So the blue circle there is round 2 potential. We put the round 2 on the map just to be safe. I do think that green contour further north within that red area would be the round 2 main concern there, 8 to 10 p.m. if storms can redevelop. All right. In terms of blue on this map on your screen, there really is no blue that I see. The blue is lakes. I don't really see any other blueness. Yeah, and also just to cover this really quickly, a lot of comments and messages on our page. My weather app doesn't say this. My weather app doesn't say that. Don't rely on your weather apps to tell you about severe weather. They're good for temperature, and sometimes they're good for precipitation chances, but do not rely on your weather apps for future radar or severe weather forecasting. Rely on SPC, NWS, your local meteorologists, us, storm chasers. We'll cover you guys in terms of severe threat. Yes, there is a risk today. Perhaps not everybody's going to see a storm, but we can't predict that for 100% certainty. Okay, it's going to be a pretty scattered risk today. So some people may get severe storms, some people may not. Some people may not get rain at all. It's going to be one of those days where your neighbor may say, "Hey, I didn't get anything. This is a total bust." this is a total wash. Forecast was wrong. But then your neighbors 5 miles down the road may have had a shingle taken off their house, you know? So the risk is there. The environment is favorable, but we're not sure entirely who's going to get storms and who's going to be dry. What about Port Huron? Models seem to have storms going around this area. So Port Huron, Ty, is in a decent environment, as is the rest of the state here. Now, I will say the models do show Port Huron being impacted roughly 4 to 5 p.m. here on the NAM3. If we zoom way in for you to Port Huron, we do have some cells popping up around that time frame, which could be severe. And this line is going to be the main concern we're going to watch. But again, further north, some pop-ups still possible. But Port Huron, for sure. And again, I think you'd be in line for a potential second round as well later on in the evening. Let's take a peek at that really quick on the HRRR model. Let's get a good idea of this. Let's go back to the 12Z real quick. All right, there we go. There's your second round there. And it does track close to Port Huron there. This is at midnight, just off to your north there. But pay attention for a potential second round there later on in the evening for you. Is the threat somewhat conditional? So that's a good question, Ryan. It kind of is conditional. I will say it is looking like it's coming together, at least for large hail damaging winds. The environment is favorable across the state today. The conditions are coming together, so to speak. But yes, there are some caveats here that may overall lower our risk, mainly just because models aren't really showing us too much in the way of like widespread coverage. And that's what's really kind of holding back our confidence for like a higher wording, so to speak. Some models keep areas dry, other models blow an entire squall lineup. So we're kind of stuck between those two scenarios here. We don't want to go one way or the other too hard just yet. But we'll have the potential in the state today. And I think a conditional is a correct term, although we are seeing the signs that it is coming together. We just got to get storms to pop, which they should. We have a good lift mechanism today. We have good instability, stuff like that. So meteorologically speaking, we shouldn't have any trouble getting storms up and going today. But you know, sometimes models struggle, and that could be the case today. Severe thunderstorm watch is possible, Mickey. And I don't know if you're asking if you're wondering why it's not issued yet. I'm not sure, but yes, it is possible later on. Typically speaking, watches are issued when the environment is favorable, which today is, over a large area, which again today is. So I think the potential for a severe watch is likely, or should I say possible, later on this afternoon. And those are usually issued about 1 to 3 hours before storms start. So if we do the timing here, if we expect storms at say 4 p.m., expect a watch between 1 and 4 p.m. And that should be pretty accurate today. If we're going to get a watch, it's going to be between that time frame. And again, we're going to have all the information posted on the page. If we get any discussions for like a watch, sometimes they'll issue a discussion in advance saying, hey, we're going to watch this area for potential watch in the next couple hours. We'll post that and let you guys know if they're thinking about issuing one. But yes, I do think it's possible today. But we'll see how the coverage looks, because there is still some uncertainty, like I said before, with that storm coverage. It could be limited. And if storm coverage is limited, that may overall, cap our risk at, just isolated at best. Excuse me. Yeah, the overall risk for tornadoes today is quite low across the state. It is a 2% across the entire lower Michigan. The UP escapes the risk, but overall, our wind shear in the low levels doesn't really turn, so there's not much spin, so to speak. Although this morning we are seeing just a hint more of some turning in the low levels, so we're going to have to keep an eye on that. But overall, I think the risk for tornadoes is still going to be tied to storm mergers, as well as boundaries like lake breeze boundaries close to the lakes, or perhaps outflow boundaries from storm interactions. And that's something we really can't predict in advance. Like we can't say this storm is going to merge with this storm at this point and it's going to have a boundary. Like we can't say that. We have no way of knowing that until it's actually happening in front of our eyes, which is the hard part about Michigan. Lakes cold enough they can weaken. So storms are not going to cross the lake today. They're going to form overland. So the lake should not play a factor today. Okay, I'll throw the time frame up one more time for you guys. See some questions about the time frame. This is your timing map here. It is color coordinated. The times are on the left side of your screen. So main takeaway from this, if you're in the red area, 1 to 4 p.m. That's going to be for start of storms, mind you. It's not going to be just your risk. It's going to be your start. Storms will start 1 to 4 p.m. There is no end time we have on this map. It's just for storms to start. We could see storms past 4 p.m. In the red area, and so on and so forth for orange and yellow. This is just for your arrival when you expect storms to arrive at your location. We could see storms go into the evening hours. All right, screenshot that if you have to. I'll take it down in about 5 seconds. All right. All right. Let's go ahead and pop open chat here. Is there a cap in place? So yes, currently there is. In fact, here we go. I'll bring this in. So this is your real-time data we're going to look at throughout the day to get an idea of how the environment's coming together. The blue shaded area here that we're seeing here in Michigan is basically your cap. We call it SIN-H, or convective inhibition. So yes, we are capped currently. It is expected to hold as a weak cap, weak to moderate cap through the afternoon. But we do have a good source of lift today, so we may break that cap. We'll keep an eye on that. If we can't break that cap, we'll still probably have a hail risk and potentially damaging wind from downburst. We do have a lot of what we call D-cape. We have a lot of forms to measure instability in with the atmosphere. We have like surface cape. We have low-level cape called 3-cape. We have mixed layer cape. We have so many different ingredients here. Another one we look at for damaging wind potential is what we call D-cape, or downdraft cape. And that's basically just showing us the higher the number we have, the more potential we have for downbursts, and that would translate over to damaging winds. But the overall D-cape today is looking pretty good. So that should support a damaging wind risk, even with elevated storms that have a cap. So we'll see. A cap is basically just a lid on the atmosphere. Imagine like there's like an inversion, or like imagine it like you're boiling okay, let's back up here. Imagine you're cooking noodles on the stove and you have to boil the water first. Now put the lid on that pot. That is your cap. So the boiling is your atmosphere. The storm is trying to go up and over. If you let it simmer for a while, it's going to go up. It's going to spill over. That cap in place kind of holds things down in the atmosphere to a point where storms don't reach their full potential. So that's the best analogy to put it. Again, guys, please do not rely on your weather apps, future radars, or severe weather forecasts. The SPC exists for that reason, and also weather apps are highly inaccurate when it comes to severe weather forecasting. And their future radar apps are based on what we use as well. And yes, there are some models that don't show storms today, but there's a plethora that do. And we have all the ingredients coming together for severe weather in the entire state today. So please do not rely on your weather apps. Will you get a storm? We can't guarantee that. Is there a possibility you may? Yes. Is it possible that storm could be severe? Yes. So again, please don't rely on your weather apps. They're good for temperatures, good for precipitation sometimes. But in terms of severe weather forecasting, future radar, stuff like that, please do not rely on those. How can we check D-cape? Well, it's right here, cape, downdraft. And there you go. So anything really over 800 is good for D-cape, in my opinion. We're having upwards of roughly 1100 to 1200. In fact, we zoom in here, there's contours here in these darker maroon colors. This is 1300 joules here of D-cape. So once we get over that 1,000 mark, that's when we start becoming more so concerned for it. And we're going to have over that 1,000, close to probably 1,200 today across portions of the state. So, yep, this is your D-cape. Again, we have so many tools available to us to look at the atmosphere and stuff like that. Overall, though, we are capped at the surface, as we see here in blue. That blue shading is your SIN-H, which indicates that cap is in place. But still, regardless of the cap sticking around, we're probably still going to have that hail and wind risk at the very least. And yes, sunshine can add instability. It is adding it today. We already have a contour here down here in south central Michigan of 1,000 surface base cape here. This map is showing our instability on the surface, and we already have it building into the state today. So it's only 11 o'clock as well. Could you see an upgrade to an enhanced risk? I think the slight is going to stick, Matthew. Confidence in overall coverage of storms is quite low. If we had higher confidence of, a big bow echo coming through, maybe get one. But at this point, I don't see that being a possibility. So I'm going to say they're going to stick with a slight risk. And again, new update at 12:30 p.m. They'll have an update, and that'll be the final update. It will update again at 4 p.m., but we'll probably be in severe operation mode at that point. So we're not going to go over that unless it changes significantly. But 12:30 p.m., hour and a half, we'll have an update from the SPC. And if anything changes, we'll post it. But I wouldn't expect too much to change at this point in time. How is Slim looking today? So Slim is looking on track. Our shear is good. We can actually take a peek at that real quick here. Let's go over. I don't have Pivotal pulled up. My bad. Hold on. Give me a second here, guys. Let's go ahead and get this pulled up. In fact, I wonder if we can actually do something different here. Let's look at this. All right. Real-time data. We're here in the moment. Let's go ahead and look at real-time data here. We can also go forward a few hours to get a forecast on this website as well. So Slim, starting with shear. Let's go ahead and click over to shear. All these blue lines here indicate your shear. Excuse me. Anything over 35 knots is good. We zoom way in here. The contour here of 40 knots is pushing into Michigan. Behind it, we have areas of 50, 60 knots. Our shear is sufficient. It'll be moving into the state through the afternoon. It'll be in place to support severe weather. It's already here, pushing across it's actually already arrived in west central Michigan. So it'll continue working its way east. So shear, check, we're good. Lift. Let's look at our lifted indice here. I believe it's under thermodynamics. Here it is. Lifted indices right now are not looking too hot, but they will increase as we build instability. So by afternoon, we're expecting that to be sufficient. Right now, not much to talk about with lift in the state. As far as instability goes, we already talked about that. We're already building that in the state, so check off instability. And moisture is the last thing here. We're going to look at surface observations here. These are dew point temperatures there in green. Hard to see. I'll zoom in for you guys, though. But across the state here, we're seeing 64 dew points across southern Michigan, 63 up here near Grand Rapids, 60 in Lowell area, Mount Pleasant 64. So all this is telling us here is we have sufficient moisture. Those dew points should rise close to 70 here today, perhaps high 60s, and that will be more than sufficient to support severe weather here. We can go more in depth in terms of like levels and stuff in the atmosphere that these ingredients line up with, but overall, we do have 3 of the 4 boxes checked right now. That lift mechanism will arrive a little bit later on as that shortwave becomes closer to Michigan. And that shortwave is basically just a kink in the atmosphere, in the atmospheric jet, so to speak, that can spark off showers and storms. And that's going to be the focus today for storm development. So that's going to be the focus a little bit later on, but lifted indices will increase as we get into the afternoon. But yes, we have all 4, we have 3 out of 4 right now, but all 4 will be checked later on this afternoon. At least that's the expectation right now. Yeah, straight line winds is a threat today. It's probably going to be the highest concern today. Did anybody hear the sonic boom about 10 o'clock this morning in Southeast Michigan? I know I heard it. There was one yesterday. They did it again this morning. They're testing a military jet out of Toledo, and it went boom, shook my house. All right. Yes, we will have chasers in the field later on this evening or afternoon. We'll have our daily, or not daily, but we do a post telling you guys where they're at or approximate locations. Joel, myself, Mike, and Nick will be manning the stream. Joel and I will likely be chasing when storms get close to us, if storms get close to us. And then also we have at least 5 or so chasers out. Chris Tobias, Cody Reynolds, Rob Fari. Christina is going to be around home base. there's one or two more as well we're going to probably have out as well. I'm missing their names. They're escaping me right now, but we have at least a few chasers who will be out. But either way, I'll be here with Joel more than likely to begin the stream with coverage if needed. And our chasers will be out as they get close to the storms and such. So got you guys covered. Yeah, I'll do time frames one more time for you guys. And if you guys are just chilling out watching me, or watching us, should I say, feel free to smash the like button on the stream. Helps us out a lot with the algorithm, and especially on days like today, anytime you like or share one of our posts or even comment on our posts here on Facebook or YouTube, it helps the algorithm, and it also suggests our page to more people. And hopefully those people that get suggested to may not be aware of that risk today. So a simple like can go a long way with the algorithm, guys. So appreciate you guys liking and sharing our posts. Feel free to do that on the stream here as well, but especially our coverage stream that's going to be later on this afternoon. If you guys are going to be here for that, feel free to like and share the crap out of that so we get as many people reached as possible, because that is the ultimate goal. Appreciate you guys, your support. Yeah, here's your tummy map one more time for you guys. Screenshot if you need to. Again, the time frames on these maps are for storm arrival. We could see storms past the end times here that we see. For example, there in red, storms could pop up between 1 and 4 p.m. They may still be going on at 6 or 7 o'clock. So just take that as arrival of storms, or when we expect storms to pop up. All right. Red Dozer, thank you for your generous donation once again. Appreciate your support as always. Weather radios are ready. Good job, Ryan. Love to hear that. Love to hear that. Just found you. Great information. Thank you, Dean. Glad to have you here. And if you guys are new here watching us for the first time, we don't just do briefings here. We chase storms. We cover them live on radar. We call out cities that need to take shelter. So feel free to hit the like button, subscribe button on YouTube here, the follow button on Facebook. Follow along with us. We track weather all across Michigan. Anytime there's a severe warning, we are live here tracking it, whether it's just a simple hail or wind threat, or there's a tornado on the ground. We're going to be here covering it no matter what. So feel free to follow us, share with your friends and family. We are dedicated, and we love what we do here. Yes, for those of you in Allegan County, tornado sirens are down in Allegan County today. So it goes to show you here. No, again, we always tell people, please don't rely on the sirens to warn you. This should be your last way to receive warnings. But yes, the siren is down in Allegan County, so don't expect to hear anything if there's any tornado warnings. I'm not sure if Allegan sounds up for severe warnings as well, but you're not going to hear warning from sirens in Allegan County today. Thank you, Lynn. About 30 minutes into the stream here, we're going to probably wrap it up here. Got some work to do behind the scenes on some stuff, talk to the guys, get a plan for the day. And yes, so recap of today, slight risk is in effect for southern lower Michigan, but a marginal risk extends pretty much for the entire state up further north and west, only excluding the 2 counties in western UP there. Otherwise, you're in a risk. Highest risk concern would be in that slight risk this afternoon from roughly 3 p.m. to around 10 p.m. or so. And again, some uncertainty as far as storm coverage does exist, but we do expect storms to fire up. And any storms that fire up today in the state have the potential to become severe, with damaging winds as your main concern, large hail, secondary concern, and then a brief tornado or two possible in the state today. And I got a lot of questions. I want to just kind of directly answer that real quick. Strong tornadoes today, very unlikely. These should be brief, spin up, weak type of tornadoes, if any at all in the state. All right. So no worries for long track stuff like that. They should be pretty brief and weak in nature. Again, if any were to occur, it's going to take a little bit of some magic here to make it happen, but it's possible. We saw it last week in Livonia. It's possible again today. That risk is in place from the SPC for the entire lower peninsula of Michigan for that 2% risk. So, all right, we'll be live later on this afternoon. Expect an update from us at 12:30 p.m. if anything changes with the SPC. Otherwise, we'll see you guys at roughly 3 to 4 p.m. for our live coverage and live chasing of today's risk here in Michigan. So you guys stay safe. we'll see you guys later. And we'll have updates on the page between now and 4 p.m. or so. So stay tuned to those. You guys stay safe, and I'll see you guys this afternoon.